Welcome to Storytime at the Rubus. My name is Andrew. I'll be doing some lineup speculation this week with.
I'm Ryan.
Hey guys, it's Daniel. I'm happy to ride shotgun this week.
Yep, so I'm going to try to take over. We're going to start off by touching on some of the EDM aspects of the lineup. So obviously things aren't confirmed yet. In fact, I think they're still putting the finishing touches on the lineup. But I want to start with some EDM stuff since it's been teased as the big improvement in terms of the quality of this lineup this year. So. Um, just going through the three that have kind of been confirmed, I think most people are most excited for Justice. Um, but obviously Tipper, Tape B, and Of the Trees have also been confirmed. Ryan, do you have any insight into which you're most excited for there?
Definitely Justice. I'm not a super huge EDM person, but Justice is one of the most excited acts I've ever had a chance to see at Bonnaroo. So that's gonna be fun. But
I would say Justice is definitely a contender for the best show I saw this year here in Atlanta. So I'm definitely excited for that. I think it's going to be great on the farm. Do you have any other general comments or thoughts, Ryan or Daniel, on some of the more confirmed EDM acts before we jump down to the more speculative ones?
Well, the thing for me at this point is placement. I think that we know a lot of the bigger names that are going to be playing. I'm sure there's going to be a number of surprises when the lineup drops. But between Justice and Tipper, that's a pretty big deal already. So at this point, I'm thinking, where are they going to put them? I was just talking on the Festiverse Discord about how I think it might be just a little bit of a disservice if they put Justice on the other or which, because I think they could easily get crowds that can make it pretty condensed there. I think you have to look at it as a situation almost like when they put Dead Mouse on the What years ago. I think it was 2014, 15. I can't even remember at this point. But I think if you want to let them go all at it with the full production and have room for everybody to be there, then you've got to find a time to put it on the What. Now, when that could be, I have no idea. Those guys, I don't envy that job because they have to put that together like a jigsaw puzzle, you know?
Yeah, and I think Justice would be a better late night act, but I could see them putting Justice is kind of like the what opener, which is kind of what I thought Glass Animals might be, and then just putting Glass Animals on Witch or something like that. Or maybe Justice does end up on Witch. I do think Tipper probably will still be on the other. He might be the biggest of the weekend on the other. Um, but I do think that Justice is more likely to be on Witch or what. The question is
Yeah.
when.
And I agree. I think Justice has just a little bit more widespread appeal than Tipper. And this isn't any offense to Tipper or his fans. I just don't think that is as mainstream of a name as Justice has become because you tell us, like that crowd in Atlanta was pretty packed. That was a sold out show, right?
Yeah, it sold out pretty quick, but they also played the Eastern, which is only like a 2,500 cap venue. So they were doing like two, 4,000, 5,000 caps in Chicago back to back that also sold out. So um,
Well, tell us
they're
about
not
that
wide
show.
arena level, but they're knocking on the door of it. So
Tell us about that show. Like, what did they have? Did they have like lasers, pyro? Like, how was the stage set up?
there weren't really lasers or pyro, but there were some of the most intense and like heavy duty lights I've seen at a show. So, like just the higher powered, more concentrated light beams, and then a lot of moving parts too. Like if you think about the UFO for Tame Impala, it's not quite that level, but there's a lot of hydraulics of light rigs being moved around. So
Yeah. And see, that's another reason I feel like the What would be a good venue for that.
yeah, I think they could probably get away with it on which, but people have mixed opinions about the way that stage is kind of operated, given where it is and how much money they spend on sound and all that. So.
It's a little cramped. I don't know how verified this is, but I think that's, I heard from a couple of people that's why we didn't have the full Pretty Lights band on the other for that sunrise set.
Yeah, I don't think Justice will be on other. I think they're too big for that. I just think Tipper, even though he does sometimes do some projection stuff, is more likely to be on the other. Now, I do think a witch is at least possible for Tipper. I just don't think it's likely.
We shall see.
And so that kind of gets me into like the mid card in general, and we'll kind of circle back to this after we go through some of the other possible EDM acts. But uh, you know, I I think one of the bigger reasons Tipper might stay on the other is just how packed the upper mid card will be this year. Um, it seems like that's where they really had some slam dunk bookings in my view. I don't know if y'all agree with that, but um, the headliners are fine, and we can kind of talk to them or talk to that in a second. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking down the list and like King Gizzard will probably be in a tent at least one night just because of how crazy some of the other bookings are. So
They've got to have a stage at some point. Maybe
I
not.
think at
Let
least one of their sets will be a real stage, yeah, like a Witch or what. Yeah,
me ask you.
I shouldn't say that or this isn't a real stage, but you know what I mean.
Let me ask you this. I think there has been some speculation that King Giz might do one of their like synth heavy sets. Do you put that on the other?
I actually would love like a sunrise Jamtronic set from King Gizzard. So, if I'm gonna give a controversial take about King Gizzard is they have been increasingly jammy recently, and a lot of shows it works, but a lot of other shows they'll kind of just noodle for 10 minutes and then they kind of just randomly restart the song without blending it back in. And they used to be better about kind of only jamming if they're weaving between songs, and now it just seems like they kind of jam without doing that. So um, that's kind of my hot take with Kinga's recently. But I would say to that point, my favorite Kinga's or jam stuff is their more electronic stuff that they've been doing on this past leg of the tour. So I'm hoping for like a tent set on Friday, an other set on Saturday, and then a which or what set on Sunday.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Just getting into some of the other pretty likely EDM acts. Obviously Dom Dalla and John Summit are not quite semi-confirmed level, but basically like right on the doorstep of that. And those were pretty highly requested from the Owls tweet. Um, and then another one I'm going to throw out that I think we just updated the thread with today is AT-Aliens is now in the reasonably likely category. That one, uh, that one's kind of a more recent development, and they were on the canceled lineups. So I think they make a lot of sense to kind of complement some of the other acts, but maybe are a little. I think they're a little more hardcore than some of the other EDM acts they've booked, but.
Did I
uh,
see them essentially self-confirming on a couple of social media posts?
It definitely bordered on what I would consider self-confirming. I've also like heard some stuff through people. None of them are like my more consistent sources, but um, yeah, I've had one or two people say like I've been hearing through the grapevine that AT Aliens is playing. The question is like, is that four different secondhand sources or not? So I do think AT Aliens will probably be there. I still put them on my mock, but I would definitely put John Summit and Dom Dalla a tier above them in terms of likelihood. So
So, Andrew, I want to take a quick detour and ask you a little bit about the secret sauce because you guys have had a pretty good method for collecting a lot of this info for the past 6 months or whatever it's been. Now, don't give too much away because I know, identities have to remain secret for some of these things. But how have you been able to collect so much of this past year on that Reddit thread?
yeah, so I mean, like, I don't want to say too much because a couple of a couple of acts I think kind of probably were intentionally leaked to us through someone at C3, but some are also coming from let's just say other people and leave it at that because I think they are a little bit more renegade and borderline risking their jobs to give us info about a Reddit thread. But
Well, I mean, let's be honest. It's not like Deep Throat and Watergate back in the 70s. Like, we're not going to like
no,
bring down a presidential administration or something. If anything, like a lot of this info getting out is helpful to Bonnaroo because it builds a lot of hype
absolutely.
for some of the artists that are probably going to be there. Ryan, how about you? What's your perspective like working that thread this past year? Like, what's been some of your ways that you've been able to get some of this intel?
Um, I honestly just am more the tour date person. Andrew and Rimmert, or I really don't know if that's how you pronounce that or not, but
I never know
are,
either.
are way more like on the source. I have some friends who work at some venues in Nashville, so I got a lot of like random tidbits about who's playing in Nashville that wouldn't be playing Bonnaroo. But I just scour the internet for tour dates constantly.
Yeah, and I like to do that every week or two, but I think Ryan does it a lot more professionally than I do. So it's good to kind of have both sides of that. Because I think a lot of the more speculative ones we probably would not have gotten if we weren't that consistent about looking for some of the.
Yeah. Well, historically, that's a way that you can pretty directly find stuff out. I remember back in, this time in 2015, somebody discovered that Pearl Jam was going to be headlining for us in 2016 because they literally just called the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville and was like, "Hey, is Pearl Jam going to be playing there?" And somebody told them, "No, they decided to play Bonnaroo instead." And they were just like, "Did you just tell me that?" And we knew in like November or December that year that they were going to be headlining for us. Like, you can find stuff out pretty easily that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of different ways to do it. There's venue people, there's people working on the lineup, or random other people at C3. There's agency people, there's the bands themselves. There's a lot of different ways you can try to source info. So,
Yeah.
um,
I
yeah,
think it's more dangerous for like the bands and bookers and their agents than it is for Bonnaroo because
yeah,
if you were to find out pretty early on that one of your favorite bands is playing Bonnaroo as opposed to like one of their own shows, you're not going to buy tickets to see one of their individual shows. You're just going to wait and see them at Rue.
if it's like your favorite artist, you'll probably just buy both. But
Well, yeah.
but yeah, if you're like more lukewarm on it, then uh, yeah, you might just wait and not
Okay.
by their individual show. So that's definitely a good point.
All right. Thanks for taking that detour with me, Andrew. All right. So we were talking about mid card on EDM, right?
Yeah, so we've gotten through the ones that I think are pretty likely, which are Dom Dalla, John Summit, and then Tipper of the Trees, Justice, and Tape B. Um, I think AT Aliens is also pretty likely, and then this is kind of where Ryan has a little bit more intel, which is kind of the more speculative section where they're on the festival survey, but maybe we don't know anything about their dates, or maybe we have dates but haven't heard anything outside of that. Um, so, Ryan, I don't know if you have the thread up, but if you wanted to run through that,
Yeah.
you can. The one I'll point out first, though, that I would say maybe we could start looking at bumping to the rumored slash reasonably likely is Ravenscoon. Um, I think they're a little bit more likely than anyone else in terms of EDM in this section, but I'll let you take it away on this one, Ryan.
Yeah, of the names that we haven't really got more information on from the festival survey, we had Daily Bread, Ganja White Knight, Gorgon City, Levity, and then Ravenscone. And I mean, I think it's very possible we see all of them. I know Ganja has been slowly trickling out some dates, and Levity's on that LSZ tour, but they're not Bonnaroo weekend. So
Right.
those two I do specifically think are more likely. And then other than Daily Bread being there in 23, I think any of them are pretty equally likely.
Yeah, I would say like Daily Bread of those bolded ones, of the Levity, Ravenscoon, Gorgon City, Contra White Knight, and Daily Bread. I would say Daily Bread is probably the least likely just because they were here so recently. And then Gorgon City is probably a little bit pricey um, if you're looking at it from who have they already booked on top of that. Um, but
Sometimes
I
I
think
think there's a little bit more likelihood of an artist playing Rue if it's kind of in their backyard. So Daily Bread is huge in Atlanta. So,
yes.
that being just a couple of hours up the road from his home base, I feel like gives it a little bit more credibility.
Yeah, and I definitely think it's still pretty possible he plays. There's a reason he's not in just the general plausible section. Like he is, there's enough to bump him up that extra level a little bit. I just don't want to say he'll be there because I really don't know. So, um, were there any other EDM acts we want to touch on, likely or not likely? Obviously, don't get your hopes up for Daft Punk,
Or
because they're
maybe.
already confirmed, right? So,
What are you talking about? They're totally confirmed.
yeah. So, we already have at least two French electronic artists there. So,
Andrew, are you the owl? Because that was the exact same joke that he used.
Yeah,
You're the owl. I knew it. Damn it.
yep, I'm the owl. So secret's out. No, I'm not actually that old.
No, we can't back that up.
Um, yeah, I'm not going to go through all the EDM acts that are like solidly out. If there are any that either of you feel like touching on, you can. Obviously, like Jamie XX will be in Europe. Um,
Yeah,
Yes, Skrill.
is out. Sorry, go ahead.
that's the only one that I'm bummed about. Skrillex, obviously, I think everybody would welcome him back to Rue, but Jamie XX, that was a bit of a bummer to find out that we, logistically can't possibly have him. That was a really great album this past year. Other than that, I mean, I'm not the biggest EDM guy. The names that we have gotten, we're pretty spoiled. Like we're eating pretty good this year.
Yeah, there's a reason they've been hyping up the EDM lineup. Obviously, I definitely think even if it's just the acts we know, it's a contender for the best lineup of all time. People got a little excited because they posted some marketing material with Aphex Twin. I think if they get, I don't think Aphex Twin will be there, but like in the off chance they get him, I think that would pretty much solidify it as the best EDM lineup in history.
That's
I don't.
wild to me because that would be a pretty misleading mistake if they did use that and didn't have him booked. So, I mean, if you're if you've been following Discord, thanks, Todd, if that were the case. But
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know. That seemed like that would be too big of a mistake. They're very smart about their marketing. I don't know if they would use that because they know that people like us would see that and be like, wait, what? You're using that? That's got to be intentional, right?
I will say Aphex Twin is like knocking. Justice is probably still a little bit bigger in terms of like what I would guess the booking cost would be. But Aphex Twin is the rarer act. Aphex,
Yeah.
plays a US Fest every couple of years, and usually it's on the West Coast at like Coachella or something. If they manage to get him, that's pretty insane.
If you had both him and Tipper on the same lineup where they have that kind of international appeal, I think that lends a lot of credence to this idea that we may sell out relatively early.
Yeah, I think people will travel for Aphex Twin,
Oh
like
yeah.
pretty long distances too. So I mean, he did just drop an album. I still don't think it's very likely. There's a reason he's not in the somewhat likely category. But uh, he's plausible, I guess. So fingers crossed. But yeah, do we want to pivot to headliners now? I know we pretty much have the headliners confirmed. I would say Tyler, the Creator, is probably the most questionable one, but there's no obvious uh alternate to that. But I'll
Well,
go
let's talk about that for a moment because, like, for a while there was speculation amongst a lot of people that it might have been Gambino, but I think word got out that he's taken some time off for health reasons or whatever. So Tyler seems like the most likely alternative if it's not Gambino, right?
right, yeah, and we had one source saying that he had pretty much been booked pretty recently. Um, the thing I'll say about Gambino is more than one person told me he was booked. Like we didn't never put him in semi-confirmed, but if it weren't for the health issues, we probably would have. It I'm pretty confident in the fact that he was booked and they had to scramble and get Tyler. Um, the question is, is our source on Tyler misleading? Um, is there uh, Is there some other act that could fill it in? Is it not a rap headliner? I just don't think either of those scenarios is more likely than just
Yeah. I
Tyler
think
being a headliner, though.
it's totally normal for Rue to be booking a headliner this late in the game. In fact, Brad said so on their Discord like a couple of weeks ago. I know he's going to hate it that we're like dissecting things that he said. I would too. I get it. But he did say there was one year in which they didn't book one of the headliners until November or December. So I think it is probably not inaccurate that you have had different sources say different things because they've potentially been going back and forth on who that may be. There was a time in which I was convinced that they were going to have like a big rock headliner at one point, but now it sounds more likely like it's going to be Tyler.
Yeah, and I do think there's like I could pretty much make the top 12 minus a rock act unless that rock act is Queens of the Stone Age. I think that's kind of the big rock act this year is Queens. The the question is whether there's someone on top of that, and I don't think there is. I think Queens is probably just the rock act this year. Um,
That's okay.
but uh,
I mean,
they're obviously not going to be number one on the day. So
they did co-headline at Shaky Knees alongside Weezer, so I mean, there's some history there.
yeah, I do think they'll probably be number two or number three on the day here at Rue, maybe even number three. Um, But if they're two, I don't think that's a bad booking. I think, you know, this one we've kind of seen coming uh, for a while, given the gap in tour dates. You know, people were saying like, "Oh, Tyler's got to be in," but there were 2 weeks before and after Rue uh, that he just wasn't doing anything, and that would lead me to think that's like his rest period. Because if you think about it, it's essentially a one-off date if they're not leading into a tour leg at that point.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so.
I have a question for you guys, since you're better versed on this than me. Is it true that, AC or Live Nation, C3, whoever it may be, does like packages with an artist? So like they will sign them for like two, three, four festivals under one booking, or do they do this individual? I don't know how this works.
I think it's very possible that given, or I don't know this for sure. My guess is Tyler's more expensive than Gambino is, though. Um, so my, not significantly, but a little bit. So my guess is Lala's budget's a little bit bigger as well. So they probably rebooked Tyler for Lala, and when they were doing that, they added Bonnaroo on uh, as like a two festival package. Because if you remember, Tyler canceled his Lala show
Yeah.
last year. So I think it's very possible that they did a two for one here, and we'll see him at both.
That's an interesting point too. If I'm the guys that are booking Bonnaroo, I have to at least consider it as a possibility that Tyler may potentially back out at the 11th hour. So you have to kind of have a backup for him. I mean, it's nothing against him. It's just that historically he's done that before.
Yep, he did it at Lala. He did do his ACL dates, which was kind of interesting because those were right before his album dropped.
Yeah. I mean, it's
But
not like Morrissey levels or anything like that, but you just do have to consider it as a distinct possibility.
yeah, it's definitely possible. The question is who they get if that were to happen, because then they would have gone through two obvious rap headliners. So I
Well,
like to stir the pot about Travis Scott. He won't be there, but I just do that more for fun. So
Well, you know what you do, what you break glass in case of emergency, you bring in the killers.
the the Killers is a replacement for Tyler. Might be a little controversial, but I wouldn't be too against it. So um, the other headliners, though, so Luke Combs, I would say I think it's a good booking, frankly, but I can see why it's controversial. He, frankly, might be the biggest artist outside of maybe Olivia Rodrigo the whole weekend. Like him and Olivia are the only two that are multi-night arena sellouts. Tyler might sell out 2 nights in like New York, but uh, in a market like Atlanta, I think Luke Combs and Olivia are the only two that could sell out multiple
Yeah.
nights at an
Luke
arena.
Combs is going to bring in a lot of like Nashville people that have been curious about Rue but never pulled the trigger. You're right. When I first heard about this and it became clear that it was a likelihood, I was a little skeptical. But the more I thought about it, like from outside of my own perspective, I was like, wow, that is an insanely smart booking. And as far as it being controversial, I think it's controversial because a lot of us just aren't very familiar with that world. Like, admittedly, a ton of us just steer clear of top 40 country. Like, we'll listen to Jason Isbell or Sturgill Simpson in an alt country kind of aspect, but we just don't ever turn to like those radio stations or those Spotify mixes. And I think that there is some hesitation amongst a lot of people. You hear one of those kind of names and you just associate it with the same crowd as like somebody like Morgan Wallen. And that hasn't been the most wholesome type of name for the past couple of years, especially amongst the Bonnaroo crowd. But the more I learned that Luke Combs is like a pretty wholesome guy that doesn't really have anything to do with that type of personality. He seems like a pretty good dude. I think he will be very welcome on the farm, and I think he'll change a lot of minds. I think a lot of people will have a good time at that show.
I mean, he does at least seem genuine. I would say like Morgan Wallen, obviously, it's pretty unfair to lump him in with someone like Morgan Wallen. And then even like a Jelly Roll or something, like he's not a pop I don't want to call Jelly Roll a pop sellout, but like he he's still a little bit more genuine uh in that sense. So I don't think Zach Bryan's a bad booking. I think it makes a
Zach
lot of sense.
Bryan.
Not Luke Combs, I mean.
I was going to say, you better tell Charlotte if Zach Bryan is coming
Yeah,
up.
no, it's not Zach Bryan. Luke Combs, I mean. So I think it'll be a good show. So
Yeah, I
but the
agree.
other potentially controversial headliner, and this is really only because of the fact that he's a headliner instead of number two or three on the day, is Hozier. I think Hozier still has kind of earned his headliner level, if only because of Too Sweet. Now, I would say like 2 years ago, he was like number three on the day at Shaky Knees, but that was also prior to Too Sweet. So the question is, do you go up to billing spots at a bigger festival because of one number one hit? And
Well,
that I don't
I
know. I
think
would
it's
say with his back catalog, the answer is probably still yes. Um, but I definitely would not say he is Luke Combs or Olivia Rodrigo. So
I think he has earned it, and I think it isn't necessarily just because of like a big hit. So he's had a lot of things going for him. He's selling out a lot of shows. He's at the top of the charts, like you've been talking about, and I think he has had a lot of faith placed in him from people like Lorne Michaels of all people, because he was the musical guest on the Christmas episode of Saturday Night Live. That is a huge vote of confidence from people outside of the music industry. I
yep.
think that goes to show, yeah, he kind of is headline level at this point. And this is not a new conversation. People have been talking about this type of thing at Rue for like 10, 15 years. I remember way back in 2013, they ultimately had to pull out, but Mumford and Sons was supposed to be one of the headliners that year. And I'm old enough to remember people having a conversation like, wow, really? They're headliners? And like way back in 2012, people were debating whether or not Arcade Fire was a headliner. So this is not new. Rue can be kind of a kingmaker to put somebody right over the top, but they don't do that unless they're right at the line. And I think that is kind of the case with Hosier. I think it's a good booking.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd say is like he is headlining other festivals. Like pretty much every other festival he's playing next year, he's headlining. The main caveat there is all those festivals are a lot smaller than Bonnaroo. I shouldn't say a lot smaller. But to your point about, Mumford and Sons, those kind of like boom clap type artists, which I'm not lumping Hozier in with, the Lumineers headlined on Sunday at Shaky Knees last year, and I would absolutely take Hozier over that. I mean, he has more hits. I think, um, no disrespect to the Lumineers, but I would probably be more disappointed to see them headline Bonnaroo than someone like Hozier. So I think Hozier is still a good booking. I just he's not, going to be Paul McCartney level headliner
Yeah.
booking.
Oh, no, certainly not. I mean, who can be? But first of all, before I dive into this, I got to correct you. Boom Clap. That was a Charlie song. You're thinking of Stomp
Oh
Clap.
yeah,
That's all
you're
these
right.
folksy guys. Yeah. No, anyway.
Stomp clap. You're right. Stomp clap is
Yeah,
I'm
it's Stomp
my
Clap.
gay brain when boom clap is stomp.
But no, I think it's okay to not have absolute, like touchdown headliners on some years, but you have to have a good undercard to support that. And we
And I
have
think they do this year.
Yeah,
So
we have every reason to believe that they do this year. Brad, when he's been talking about this on Discord, has sounded overconfident, if anything. So I have no worries about that.
yeah, and I mean like I frankly like the I would say he's like right in line with Fred again too. Like Fred again was definitely border. There's still debate about Fred again, but Fred again was also selling, well, not quite selling out, but getting pretty close to selling out arenas in the US. And Hosier's kind of moving on from amphitheaters into arenas pretty soon here. So I would say it's kind of similar in that vein.
I agree.
So now I would say the other headliners this year, which we kind of mentioned Tyler already and Luke Combs already, but Olivia Rodrigo, um, you add all those up, and I think they're better supports for that kind of borderline headliner booking than Red Hot Chili Peppers, who is an expensive booking and frankly bigger than Arena Level 2, but also bigger than Post Malone. So
Andrew, one other thing I want to give Rue props for, even though we don't really have the full lineup yet, it's seeming like there's going to be a lot of woman power on this lineup. So we have Olivia headlining one night, but we're pretty sure we also have Avril Lavigne as like kind of like a little bit of a throwback act, which ages me and many other people to realize that she's that now. But it sounds like there's a lot of great women on the lineup, and that's been kind of hinted at on the Festiverse as well. That's going to be interesting to like really take a deep dive into and dissect once we get the full lineup. But I am very happy that Rue is really taking that seriously and seemingly going out of their way to make sure that we have a great lineup of women on the card.
Yeah, and like I was like looking through all the possibilities for women and kind of the mid card, and it got to be kind of crazy actually. Like the obvious one is Avril Lavigne. I think she's pretty much there.
That's a
Um,
great booking.
but like they were, it's almost seemed like wink winking about Casey Musgraves. Um, I think Gracie Abrams is possible. Be I might butcher this. Biabadoobie. And then Claro, uh, I also think are all still possible as well. So, you add all those up, and that's a decent number of kind of women pop slash country. The question is how deep that goes down. I still don't think it'll be, the 40 to 50% that I think people um, like Skylar that are, very big on the Book More Women Instagram. But I do think it'll
As
be
they
higher
should.
than like the 20 odd percent that it was last year. But I think they've done a lot better of kind of pushing them up into that higher level this year. So
Yeah. I hope we have a good representation of like LGBT artists too. That's something that I feel like has to be a conversation when you're looking at all these lineups. And, not to get into the politics of it, but it's very important to have a good representation in Tennessee of all places too. So I hope we can reflect on the lineup and see that we had a lot in that area as well.
yeah, and also just like gay friendly artists. I think I put like Trixie Mattel on my mock just to kind of like I don't actually know that they'll be there, but like just kind of filling that uh, box in something that I kind of want to at least remind the bookers of. They ended up not doing that this year, but um, frankly, like if I'm just going off of like LGBT friendly artists, I would say like that Primavera Sound lineup the week before Rue in Europe. Um, Frankly, is probably going to check some more of those boxes than Rue will, which is not to say Rue won't have plenty of offerings. I just don't know that it'll be quite um,
Yeah.
that level.
Well, I mean, look, it's in June. We have the House of Yes. You got to have quite a bit. Come on now.
Yep. No, it'll definitely be say it'll satiate I think a lot of people. I just don't know that I just think that Primavera lineup was so crazy if you're into kind of the gay pop stuff that
Yeah.
it's gonna be hard for them to compete with that.
What else you got?
Ryan, did you have any thoughts on headliners before we kind of move into some of the other mid-card acts?
Well, I'm going to hear from Ryan. Ryan, what do you think about our potential headliner card this year?
I am a newer Rue goer, and I'm all for them booking modern people. And so this may not be a hot take coming from me, but I think that the combination of Olivia, Luke, and Tyler is like far and away the strongest three headliners we've had in a single year, and at least this decade.
I
Um,
would agree.
I don't
Since
even
the
think
cancel
it's
lineups, yeah.
close. We have two people who can easily sell out a stadium, and somebody who's easily selling out arenas, and one of them's on Thursday. So
Yeah.
it's kind of wild.
Yeah.
Really, and I think, like we were talking about with Hosier, I think there's going to be conversations about, is he a headliner, is he not? I think in a normal year, he looks a little stronger too. Normally, we don't have Luke Combs and Olivia Rodrigo. But yeah, I mean, he's selling out the same size venue that Fred again was selling out. So I mean, I think they're all pretty justified, and they're all going to be pretty fun shows.
Yep, and I would agree with that. Normally we get one artist that kind of is knocking on stadium level, but the fact that we have two this year and still a really solid arena put on top of that, I think uh, definitely makes it hard to crap on any of the headliners really. So, um, yep. Do we want to move on to some of the other mid-card acts? I know we kind of went through EDM already, but I'll probably just combine all the other genres. So.
Yeah, let's do that. I think there's a lot that many of us are looking forward to. This being like a really good mid-card year, as we're suspecting. It's not just the EDM stuff. What else are we looking at, Andrew?
Yeah, so well, Bia Badoobie, as I mentioned, Glass Animals, Hot Mulligan, um, Slightly Stupid, and The Red Clay Strays are all pretty much confirmed via Rue Clues. And then we already went through Electronic, but the Owl confirmed those. But um, yeah, I think those, Glass Animals, it'll be interesting to see whether they're booked at like a two or whether they're booked at like a three or a four. If they're booked below a two, I think that will really show how crazy good some of these artists are. Um,
It's kind of a shame. I was really thinking that Glass Animals was going to be, knocking on the door of being headliner ready, but this last album, it was okay to a lot of people. It just wasn't really the hit that Dreamland was, and I think it's going to take one more good album for them to get there.
yeah, and I think like Glass Animals now, and I obviously like Tame Impala way more and kind of I'm not as familiar with Glass Animals, but I think they're kind of in like that 2016 set that Tame's in, like a
Uh,
late night witch set for
well,
um,
late night in the
Glass
middle of
Animals makes
June,
a lot
that
of
makes
sense.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. That or they'll open for the headliner, but I think Late Night Witch is my guess for Glass Animals. Um, I know there were a couple people excited about like Hot Mulligan, Biba Doobie's pretty big. Slightly Stupid is also pretty big. And then the Red Clay Strays is probably a good support for like the Luke Combs and maybe even to some degree Hozier fans. So those are obviously the confirmed ones. Then I'll go through the semi-confirmed ones real quick too, which are King Gizzard, who we briefly mentioned earlier, as well as Avril Lavigne, who we mentioned earlier. But Flip Turn is also
Yeah.
really cool. Be returning to the farm, friend of the podcast, kind of. Um, they'll unfortunately not be playing the Wednesday party. We did already solicit that, but
Well,
it'll
I mean, it
be
just came down to scheduling. They can't necessarily be at the farm for a whole week like they were last time.
right. Yeah, yep. It sounds like this is going to be a different travel situation for them.
Yeah,
So,
that's totally cool.
yep. Brad acted like Avril Lavigne would be a pretty high booking. I had her a little bit lower on my mock. So expect her to be number two or three on the day. Um, and then it'll be interesting to see what they do with King Gizzard as well. But
I
Ryan,
think
you
you
have
kind
anything?
of book them separately on the poster. Like you don't necessarily have to put them above or below anybody, but you put it at the top or bottom saying like plus a residency from King Gizzard. That's almost like a separate headliner in a way.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how they do that. My guess is they just put it at the bottom of the poster, but
Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah,
Coachella's done that with a couple of things over the years.
yeah, they tend to always have kind of like a backup quote unquote headliner. Like this year, it's Travis Scott, um, but Swedish House Mafia was one another year that ended up filling in for um, was it Kanye? I don't remember.
I think
Uh,
so. I can't remember.
uh, yeah, the
I think giving King Gizzard a billing like that is kind of like a king making move, like we were talking about previously with Hosier. Like King Gizzard is very slowly starting to make their way into the mainstream consciousness. There was a big Rolling Stone article about them a couple of months, and it's starting to be people beyond our whole like wook jam sphere that's starting to be more aware of them. So I can see this as a way of Rue putting that vote of confidence in them and being like, "Hey, it's time for the rest of you to know this band now."
It, yeah, I mean, like King Gizzard is now playing the venues that Tame was during their current tour, so they're pretty damn big at this point. But they are still too big to be, a number one or two at a festival like Bonnaroo. But they could easily be like a three or a four, if they were to do it by day. So,
Well, speaking of jam, it looks like Goose is a distinct possibility.
yep. So I would say like between King Gizzard and Goose, those will probably be the big jam acts. They did say they weren't going to that they didn't say they weren't going to book jam, but someone I believe it was the Owl mentioned that it was one of the least requested genres. Um, so my guess is between those two, that'll pretty much round out all the big jam acts this year. But we could still see a couple more in the undercard. Um, but yeah, Goose. Goose and Kinkiz are definitely Rue centric jam acts. So
I think Goose, even by themselves, is a lot to keep a lot of jam people happy because their popularity has absolutely exploded in the past year or so too.
yep, yep. I could definitely see them being pretty big. So um, I'll go through some of the more. Uh, I would still say these guys are pretty likely. Before we jump down to the uh, kind of more speculative ones, but I would still be very surprised about all of the following artists if they're not on the lineup, and those will include Mannequin Pussy, Modest Mouse, Rainbow Kitten Surprise, Vampire Weekend, Dochi, Flamingosis, Chlorilla, Queens of the Stone Age, The Criticals, and Treaty Oak Revival. Um, I think all of those you can pretty much expect to be there. I'm not going to guarantee those, but we at least have like some pretty good inside baseball on all of those artists as well. So, um, unfortunately, I don't have any like new artists to leak on this podcast, but I think that's a uh, pretty good set in terms of just artists that you could pretty much expect to be there. But Ryan, did you have any thoughts on those?
Yeah, there's definitely some, I think, incredible, very likely people. And we were just talking about the strength of the mid card. Like, there's so many people when you look at this in a list that realistically could be a three or a four on a day. And then I think personally, like Dochi was a slam dunk booking.
Yep.
She has had an incredible like 6 weeks, and I fully think she'll be our Chapel Roan Noah Khan of the year in the terms of uh, she unexpectedly packs out the what field kind of thing. Flamingosis, I would say, I feel is probably the least likely, but they're managed by the Bonnaroo Booker, well, C3, and then have pretty much said they're playing. But all of these are very solid, and I think that they'll all be fun shows again. Like, this is shaping up very nicely, certainly.
Yep, yep. I think like the Queens of the Stone Age Vampire Weekends, the fact that those will be number twos at minimum are pretty solid. So
I'm
uh,
so theoretically excited for Vampire Weekend. I've been wanting to see them again so badly.
yep, yep, yep.
You
So
know,
yeah, I would agree that Dochi, like I don't think she'll quite get to Chapel levels because that's like a once in a or
yeah.
maybe twice in a decade type level blow up. But
Well, you
I
never
do think
know. I think that's a question we should revisit once we have the lineup in hand. Is like, hey, who would you place a bet on for being that type of artist this year? And it really is like catching a falling knife. You really can't ever know because what the public latches onto is something that's just wildly unpredictable. I'm looking at a lot of these bolded names that you guys have on the Reddit thread, and nothing's like really jumping out to me yet because we just don't know, you know?
yeah, and I think if Dochi's in like a tent, like it'll definitely be packed out. Like right now, it would probably be packed out. So, if they booked her for a tent, yeah, I think they'll probably have to pull a chaperone and move her again. But if she's on Witch or what, late afternoon, it'll be a it'll be a crowded area, but it might not quite give that Chapel Roan kind of picturesque, um, photo caption. So, um, yeah, I do think Dochi's has some of the most blow up potential of any of those artists. But um, as far as the more speculative artists go, do you kind of want to run through that section, Ryan?
Yeah, I can. We just bolded Tommy Richmond this morning. He liked a DM about playing, and again is managed by C3. So I think he's one of the more I don't want to say likely, but like I would not be surprised at all if we saw him. Alan Jackson is another one. I think he would be very much a wild card to see come out at this point, but he is on a farewell tour that skips Tennessee, which is kind of crazy for a country act, I feel like. And then Benson Boone seems quite obvious, but we don't really have any solid information on. Empire of the Sun and Foster the People are kind of in the same boat. Their tours are open. And then we have Gracie Abrams, who appears to be doing a festival run and has Bonnaroo and every other C3 festival wide open. Joey Valence and Bray. they're doing Electric Forest and are in that tier of artists that Brad said we had one of. So I think they're one of the more logical choices there. And then Yachty and Paris, Texas, they're both on the Tyler tour. I think they're both great fits for Bonnaroo. And then also in the rap vein, Run the Jewels. They have a lone North Carolina date the week before Bonnaroo, which is very bizarre to me. I know they're from the southeast, but just a random show in Charlotte is kind of strange. Oh, and then Zingara, I meant to bring her up earlier. She also commented on TikTok about playing Bonnaroo, but she is in Seattle, I believe, on Saturday and Sunday, or Friday and Saturday. But she did play Florida and Maryland within 12 hours one time. So
Yeah, I mean, you never know how some of that touring writing goes. Like people were casting doubt on Goose, but I still think Goose will pull like a 11-hour drive and
yeah,
do both of those festivals that weekend. There's one artist, I said I wasn't gonna have any new info. There's one artist I'm really realizing is missing from the speculative category, which is Shabuzi. I would I would guess that he's at least possible as well. So um, that's the only. I mean, kind of gives me the same vibe as like Tommy Richmond, but I would kind of put him in line with that, where it would make a lot of sense for him to be there. So
He makes a lot of sense from like the Lanes perspective that the What podcast has been talking about for a couple of years too. Because if you're going to have Luke Combs, then somebody like him makes a lot of sense too.
yeah, and if they do more than one act on like what stage on Thursday, then Shabuzi's a very, I kind of think, logical opener for Luke Combs. So I don't know if they'll do that, but it would make sense. So well, cool. Do we have any final thoughts on the lineup before we wrap it up? I'm not going to go through all the artists that are unlikely and out, but I guess Shabuzi is the closest thing I'll give to a pretty likely artist that I um, would expect to see there. So
Andrew out here with the T, yeah.
yeah, that'll
Um,
be the closest thing to T on the podcast today.
One thing I do want to mention real quick, and Charlotte's not on today, but she wanted me to talk about this a little bit. She's going to be putting something in the Bonnaroo Reddit as a mod that we're starting to get into silly season. So a lot of the stuff that you just heard from Andrew and Ryan are stuff that, they do a lot of homework. They don't put it out there unless they're like, hey, I'm pretty sure of this. But there's going to be things that are posted on Reddit or just in random places like Twitter or Discord or whatever that aren't nearly as sourced. It might even be to the level of somebody just trying to, troll everybody. So these last 2 weeks before we really get the poster, like there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're going to see that you really need to take with a big grain of salt if it's not coming from somebody that you have already seen discuss this kind of stuff in the past couple of months.
Yeah, and I've said this on Info Roost, I'll say it again here, which is we're actually sitting on one artist just to kind of be able to verify whether a lineup is real or fake. Um, and then there's a couple more that like are on my mock lineups that are intentionally left off of that thread to kind of add some um, validation there. But the, the we basically have two or three artists that we're intentionally sitting on to kind of see how silly people get. Um,
Daft Punk confirmed.
Yep. So yeah, Daft Punk. You just gave one away, but Daft Punk will be
Oh,
one of
damn it.
them.
Yeah. No, I'm serious. Daft Punk is going to be there. We've discussed this.
They are, yeah, in outer though, not in
Yeah,
center.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, that's the plan. Yeah. But
Alrighty. Well, I don't have anything else. Ryan or Daniel, if y'all want to have any closing thoughts, otherwise I'll hand it back to Daniel and Charlotte.
yeah,
um,
Ryan, you go first, and I got one other thing.
yeah, I did just want to bring up Haley Williams. She was sort of
Oh yeah.
presented herself as a last minute, I think, honestly, very, very possible contender. If you aren't familiar, in around this time in 2019, she announced a solo record that is very different from what Paramore has done. And obviously, we all know what happened in 2020. So, like, the tour never came to fruition. Her Bonnaroo appearance never came to fruition, and her curating, what I believe is now the Zen Zone, never happened. So, in my opinion, if Haley Williams is playing shows next year in the summer, she very likely plays Bonnaroo. She even mentioned it during the Paramore set. So yeah, I think that if she is going to legitimately tour, which she has implied that she is going to, I think there's a more than likely chance we see her.
I think if that happens, then she's probably going to curate a barn or something too,
Yeah.
because she's had that involvement as well.
Yeah, and I think it'd be fun to do like an Outeroo speculation in like February because I think in
Yeah.
2021 there was a rumor that she was supposed to do like some sort of secret set in addition to that curation. Obviously, we don't know if that was actually true because it got rained out, but um, that and like with some of the other Outeroo programming and the Wednesday party I'm working on with Matt, like um, I think doing an episode like this for just Outeroo programming would be fun here in about 2 months.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I had one of the guys from New York from the House of Yes on, I think it was the year before last. Maybe we can get one of them to come on and tell us what they're up to this year too.
yep, yep. I think that'll pretty much do it in terms of pre-lineup speculation, though. I'll have to circle back after we have the lineup in hand and give some initial thoughts. But otherwise, yeah. Daniel, any last word?
Yeah, one more thing that I'll mention because we may not say a lot about this until the lineup is out here in what, 2 weeks, something like that. The last day or two before the actual release, you're going to see a lot of posters that people will swear, this is it, it's leaked, I have it, but it ain't it. Like, just take a look at the font and the design and everything. If it looks at all amateur, it's not it. It inevitably will get out to a handful of people, but those handful of people are very protective of their sources. We don't want to get anybody into hot water if it does come into our hands, so we're not going to post it publicly if it does come out.
People
Just
will remake those lineups in whatever like design tool they
yeah.
use to protect the source because they're usually watermarked with who
Well,
the source is. So.
it was something disgusting last year, if you remember.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say what it was. You can go back and look, but
That's become an InfoRoo legend at this point. They're never
absolutely.
gonna let that one go. But it was pretty funny, yeah. But anyway, what I'm saying is just have a fair degree of skepticism when you see all of this stuff here in the next week or two, especially in the last day or two before the lineup is out, because people are just going to be trying to troll you. So just keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I would say like it's only the legit design of the lineup if you find an artist with two O's in their name and it looks like an infinity symbol rather than two O's. Like you can download a font that looks a lot like Bonnaroo's font. Bonnaroo like paid extra money to get like
Yeah.
some slight deviations to the font.
Didn't we
So
find the name of that font? I feel like Charlotte, what was the name of that font? She's right here. Here she comes with the big reveal because she was working on something for the Reddit.
you're gonna give people a way to make some fake lineups now.
No, I don't.
You want to wait a week?
You can look for it for yourself. That's all I
But
do.
it exists. I saw you and her talking about it.
Yeah, I did find it. So it's not quite exactly the same, but the last thing I'll also say is don't expect the lineup to be broken down by day right at first. So
That's gonna
uh,
be interesting. Yeah.
yep, yep. But yeah, I would say the design of the poster don't that doesn't really weigh into how legitimate it might be because if someone has the real thing, they'll probably just type it out real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Andrew, thanks so much for putting this together. And I really got to give both of you guys and Remard, which way do you actually say it?
Remerb, I could be wrong.
Remard, yeah. We've been debating this for forever. But anyways, I've got to give you guys props for doing this. It hasn't just been like, oh, we would like this band to play or we think this band is playing. Like you guys have been putting like journalistic quality effort into this to verifying all this stuff. And you don't put something in bold or whatever unless you're pretty sure it's going to be there. And the whole system that you've set up, I think, has been pretty incredible. And also, I appreciate that you're sitting on a few things so people can be surprised opening their Christmas presents again here in just a few weeks. So yeah, great job, guys. On behalf of pretty much the whole community, I give you thanks for giving us an idea of what we can expect. It's been incredible.
Yep, yep. Excited to see the lineup here in a week.
A week? Oh, geez, you're right. Goodness, it is coming up close.
A week and yeah, pretty much when this episode comes out, it'll pretty much be a week. So
Yeah, I expect that we should see the announcement about an announcement here in the next couple of days, probably.
yep, I would. It'll be Tuesday, January 7th. But yes, I would. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Well, Andrew, thanks for putting this together for us this week. And Charlotte and I will be back after the break. And Andrew, I expect to see you again for our lineup drop episode.
Yep, I'll be there in some capacity. So.
All right. Thank you to you too, Ryan.
Yeah, see y'all later.
All right. See you guys.
So welcome back, everyone. Big thanks to Andrew for putting that together for us and to Ryan for joining us as well.
Yeah, Andrew had been wanting to do that for a while now. It turned out that the timing was pretty good. We had to wait until after we got past all of that Christmas stuff and really everybody traveling for Christmas. And it worked out well because I think we're supposed to get the lineup here in about a week. So it was great to talk about that before we get the poster before too long, right?
Right. I'm very excited, but as we always say, everyone needs to always keep their expectations in check for everything.
Yeah, I think that's one good purpose that thread serves. We kind of know what we are getting, but we know pretty early what we aren't getting. So, there's not going to be like any huge thing from like the Rolling Stones or whatever, because we all can take a look at, tour dates and different things. And sometimes we get tips on a lot of things, and I think that is a really good tool for both, us as fans, and honestly, it's good marketing for them to sell tickets too.
Oh, obviously it's good marketing for them to build up excitement. Of course. But when the lineup comes out, there's always, it could be the most perfect lineup that Bonnaroo has ever seen in the history of Bonnaroo. And there's always going to be people that, well, you didn't book my favorite bands, and this is not my type of lineup.
Why didn't you get promised, bro?
I am not going to go, and this sucks.
Well, good. You can not go if you feel that way. We'll have a good time without you.
And as I always say, the difference between a mature person and an immature person is this is not for me versus this sucks.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. We've had a couple of friends who were kind of one and done at Bonnaroo, and I'm like, hey, you tried it. You decided it wasn't for you.
Exactly.
At least you were, cool enough to give it a try, and mature enough to be like, I'm going to try something else.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that, So, yeah, we are hearing that the lineup should drop January 7th. But, of course, if you don't hear that officially on a Bonnaroo account or from one of the guys on their Discord, it's not officially official yet. But I expect that you'll be hearing an announcement like I was talking about with Andrew here before too long. We did see that everybody got a text today as we're recording this on the 30th, actually, that the pre-sale is going to be ending, and you pretty much know what that means for what's going to happen a couple of days after that. So, yeah, it's coming. It'll be here in just about a week or so. I do have to mention, our lineup episode is going to be a little bit different this year because I'm going to be traveling right when it comes out.
So who is doing it then?
Yeah, well, you for one
me?
thing.
Oh,
yeah,
me?
yeah. But I had been talking with Andrew. Him and I are conspiring. I've got to get you two together. I will be on. It's
Maybe
just going to be.
Just let Andrew do it.
Oh,
maybe
well,
let
perhaps.
Andrew and Skylar and all them folks.
Ooh, well, maybe we should talk with him before we volunteer them.
Yeah, maybe I should not volunteer people.
Yeah. But yes, we are going to be working with our crew. The lineup episode is one of the biggest of the year, if not the biggest. And it's going to look a little bit different this year because of my travel schedule. And honestly, I think the weather is going to play a factor because I don't know if you've been seeing, but it's supposed to get like ridiculously cold and maybe snow in some parts of the country right when the lineup drops.
Oh.
It doesn't matter because you can sit at home and see the lineup.
I'll be at work.
Yeah. Will you though? Will you though? Because if it snows.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
never
I'm
know.
just saying most of the time it always comes out during the day. So
Yeah. I think in years past it had historically been about 9 or 10 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So probably around that time, that Tuesday. But again, it's not official until you hear it from them. We just, reasonably expect that. Charlotte, one thing that we have to do is thank our Patreons. This will be the last time for 2024. It's been an incredible year this year.
Yes.
So I tell you what, why don't we, first of all, you need to get rid of a dog.
There is a dog just rolling just up in my grill. So.
If you guys have been to our house, this dog Truman is a friendly and lovable dog, but he is legitimately insane. He does not stop. All right. If we can ignore Truman, let's get through the names here.
Oh my goodness, we have some new names on here,
Yeah.
which I'm very excited about. So we've got Daniel Brady. I Am Rave Dad. Definitely follow I Am Rave Dad's tips on Twitter.
Oh, yeah,
and
those
Blue
have been
Sky.
incredible.
Yeah, those are really good. Taylor, Courtney, Casey with the Texas Roo Crew, Christy, Charmel, Jums, Sarah, David and Aurora, String Bean, Taylor, Zach and Jeremy, Amber, Andrea, JB, Sam, Austin, James, Chelsea, aka Hygiene Queen, Ryan, Chris and Shy, Dan, Harris, Keith, Casey, Amanda, Aaron, Nick, Maddie, McFerg, Kent, Randy, Eric and Ben, Evan, Jay, Chloe, and Sean.
Yeah, and not you, Truman. Thank you. But yeah, it's been an incredible year for Totem. In fact, we got some cool stuff done today, just a couple of hours ago before we recorded this. We talked to someone from another nonprofit, Consider Haiti. We got some advice from them and got some good intel on what we hope to do with our international program before too long. And honestly, I think we're going to be able to do a virtual version of our international exchange program this year. We talked to our friend from Consider Haiti, and I think what we're going to try to do is trade some videos. So we're going to identify like some, musical people in Haiti that will send us some stuff that we can play at Rue, maybe at one of our like workshop type things, and we'll send them some stuff back. So it may be a while before we can do something in person because, well, just Google the news on Haiti and you'll see why pretty quick. It's not the most ideal situation down there. But as soon as the situation gets better there here in a couple of years, we are going to find some way to do that in person with Haiti, with Totem.
They gave us a lot of great advice, and they did tell us about some Haitian bands, some Haitian musical artists, so that was really helpful.
Yeah, when I was there a number of years ago, like literally everybody there is musical. Like every little village has some guys that kind of jams together or whatever, But we really had a good talk with him. We identified a couple of areas that we weren't really familiar with. And you should look up the band RAM. It's RAM, all caps. Apparently that's one of the biggest bands in Haiti. That was the recommendation that we got. So check them out. I don't know if we'll be bringing them. I'm going to bring some band.
Yeah.
Who knows if it may be them. It's going to be a couple of years before that happens. But anyways, we will have more information in early 2025 about kind of the virtual stuff that we may do as a part of Totem's international program. And Charlotte, the applications are open for the next 2 months, right? For the other two programs?
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of our mentorship program and our scholarship application, those are open until the end of February. So you have until February the 28th to apply. Right now we have, in full transparency, we have 12 scholarship applications, and then we got 37 mentor applications and 9 mentee applications. So I'd really love to have more scholarship applications and then more mentee applications. So if you know someone who is going to Bonnaroo for their first time or wants to go to Bonnaroo for their first time, please, 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 please spread the word and let them know about our programs.
Yeah, and if you know somebody that already has bought their ticket and is going for their first time, make sure that you encourage them to sign up as a mentee as well.
Exactly. Also, this episode will be going out on the 30th, the 31st.
Yeah.
So if you want to get in your 2024 donation, please, please, please head to totemfnd.org. There is a donation button on there. Or if you want to go straight to the source, www.givebutter.com/raise the totem.
Butter.
But, well, that's the donation resource that we use. The shopping cart, essentially.
I'm just messing with you.
But you can find it on totemfnd.org is how you can donate and help provide scholarships for underserved individuals to attend music festivals like Bonnaroo and beyond, because we do hope to expand in the future.
Well, we are. We're going to expand to Halloween in the fall of next year.
I've read through some of the scholarship applications, and there's a couple in there that I'm so very excited about. There's one in there in particular, obviously can't give out any information, but there's one in there in particular that I'm so excited about. But last year, we had, I think it was 52, and we couldn't even decide. It was just incredible.
We do have a kind of a panel within our board that goes through it because we try to be as impartial as possible with these. We have a whole process. We take it really seriously.
Yes, it takes us at least a good month and then a month of interviews. So, it's a whole process.
We don't just look at it and be like, hey, I think this is cool. Like, no, we have a number of people to make sure that we do this, kind of ethically and fairly as possible.
And one thing, too, if you know someone that is applying, make sure that they have something that they want to do at the festival, something they want to accomplish at the festival.
Yeah, this isn't a handout.
It's a pretty big thing that we look at, especially the essay portion. It's the number one thing we look at.
Hey, one other thing, too, about Totem. I am going to make a simple flyer that if you are going back to college after the Christmas break, I would love for you to print out and put in your like dorm hall or your classroom building or something like that. So look for that later in the week as well. But yeah, Charlotte, I guess that wraps it up for us for 2024. This was a good year for us. It was a good year for Rue. I think we have one of the best lineups in a long time coming next week, you know?
Oh, I'm so excited about it.
25 is about to be a fun one. We're about to ring it in Nashville. We're going to see a couple of Ruvians on New Year's Day to go have brunch. JB and Shayna, I know you're listening. We'll see you on New Year's Day. And you know, that's something else I was kind of thinking about what's going to be happening in 2025. Like, so many Ruvians are getting together outside of Manchester in June. Like, we're meeting them on New Year's Day. I know of a lot of other people that's potentially going to that Pretty Light show in Chicago. Like, so many things. We got a group going to Vegas. Like, that is like one of the best things about this community is like we're able to see each other so many times throughout the year, you know?
Right.
And it's kind of cool to see it really happening online more these days on our Discord, on the Festiverse Discord.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're one of the moderators of the Reddit. It's kind of blown up in the past year. Didn't you tell me that the numbers went up tremendously for it this year?
62%. We had 62% more visitors. Well, 62.5% more visitors in 24 than in 23.
Jeez, man. But yeah, we've had a lot of stuff grow on our side too. Like the podcast has really blown up this year. Totem has grown tremendously, and I think that's in large part to like our amazing board and supporters. We got a lot done at South Star. We're planning on a lot for Rue next year. We had our first scholarship class. We had our first mentorship program. Guys, thank you so much for supporting us because like I feel like we hit pretty much every goal for our first real year in 24, and we're going to take it a step further in 25, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We have so much more to come.
Yeah. Oh boy, it's going to be fun. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for all of your love and support through this past year. Thank you for the trust that you put in us, whether it be through Patreon or coming to our events or whatever it may be. I really hope to see more of you in 2025. And you know what? I think this could potentially be one of the best Rues in a really long time, man. I hope to see all of you there in June and throw literally the greatest party on the planet. But yeah, guys, I guess for the last time for this year, get out there and radiate positivity. We'll see you in 25.
Bye.